Thanks for staying with TVC News. Wagner mercenary chief Yevgeny Prigozhin is presumed dead, having been named on the passenger list of a private jet that crashed north of the Russian capital, Moscow. A key ally of Russian President Vladimir Putin, his private military company has played a key role in Ukraine following Moscow's invasion in February 2022. But his relationship with Mr. Putin soured after Mr. Prigozhin ordered his troops to march on Moscow in a day-long rebellion against Russia's military leaders in June. Russian aviation officials confirmed the aircraft, an Embraer Legacy, had been flying between Moscow and St. Petersburg when it crashed in the Tver region north of Moscow Wednesday evening. But Wagner-linked Telegram channel Grey Zone reported the jet had been shot down by the Russian military, although it provided no evidence to support its claim. The private jet was carrying 7 passengers and 3 crew. According to preliminary information, all 10 people on board were killed. All the bodies are said to have been recovered. Joining us to discuss this is a lecturer at the Liverpool Hope University, Bola Adediran. Thank you for joining us on The World Now. Wagner leader Prigozhin is perhaps the biggest challenge to Russian President Vladimir Putin. What is the implication of his possible death in Wednesday's plane crash?
I think that the most important lesson that that those who are watching Russian politics will get from this is that Vladimir Putin is not weak. I think when the march on Moscow happened in June, people were concerned about the extent to which Putin would continue to hold power in Russia. And there were concerns, obviously, that this probably were the last days of Vladimir Putin's regime. But what we have seen over and over again is that whoever crosses Vladimir Putin, at some point, he would manage to get his revenge. And this is a clear indication of that. I think that the most important implication also is that Vladimir Putin has managed to also secure his power and to reassert his authority over Russian politics. And this is obviously very interesting.
All right, I'll quickly read a tweet from an aide to Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky, that's Mikhailo Podolyak, and it's about Prigozhin, quote now, "It is worth waiting for the fog of war to disappear. Meanwhile, it is obvious that Putin does not forgive anyone for his own bestial terror. Exactly the one that nullified him in June 2023, and he was waiting for the moment. It is also obvious that Prigozhin signed a special death warrant for himself. The moment he believed in Lukashenko's bizarre guarantees and Putin's equally absurd word of honor. The demonstrative elimination of Prigozhin and the Wagner command 2 months after the coup is a signal from Putin to Russia's elites ahead of the 2024 elections. Beware, disloyalty equals death. But it's also a signal to the Russian military there will be no SVO heroes. If it isn't a Ukrainian tribunal, it will be an FSB bullet." Why do you think? I mean, because this point has been corroborated by some other countries. Talk about Estonia, talk about Poland. UK is the one saying that government shouldn't jump to conclusions just yet. Why could this have happened?
Well, I think that why it has happened is that Prigozhin obviously overstepped his bounds, thought too much of himself, began to really believe in his own hype. This was a person who was in prison throughout the 80s and the 90s. This is a former hot dog seller. This is a former petty thief who can attribute his massive rise in Russian politics to Vladimir Putin, who for a long time Prigozhin was considered Putin's chef because of Putin's patronage of its restaurants. And so this is a person who enjoyed Putin's patronage and then committed such a treasonable act by marching onto Moscow and demonstrating to the world that perhaps Putin does not have the complete authority over the Russian state. And I think that what Putin has done is to show that even if I do not do anything in that moment, which was what he did in June, at some point I will exact revenge. And I think that it is a signal not only to other individuals who may be thinking of contesting Putin's authority in Russia, but even to the rest of the world, to countries like Ukraine, to countries like UK and to adversaries of Russia, that at some point Vladimir Putin would ask for his pound of flesh.
But then what becomes of the Wagner group? Because members are obviously armed because they have been working as a private military.
Well, I think that the Wagner group, this is not the last of the Wagner group, even though it is reported that Prigozhin and his deputy, Dmitry Utkin, both died in this plane crash. But I think that the Wagner group is so important to the Russian state now. 2 days ago or a day before Prigozhin's death, it was reported to have been in somewhere in Africa, talking about how the Russian state is now here to stay in Africa and is also freeing African states. We know that the coup in Niger, part of the level of confidence that the coup leaders in Niger have is because the Wagner group is also providing some form of support and assurances. So the Wagner group has become a key aspect in Russia's attempt to have its footprint in Africa. What I think would happen is that either a new loyal person to Vladimir Putin would be put in charge of the Wagner group, or that the Wagner group will be reincorporated in some way with the Russian military. But I don't think that this is going to be the end of the Wagner group. And even though we're also seeing some comments from on social media that Wagner group soldiers are preparing for retaliations and revenge, I think this is an exaggeration. I don't think that a 5,000 strong group has the capacity to take on the Russian state. So we will definitely see more of the Wagner group, but the Wagner group now incorporated within the Russian army, or that a loyal person leading the mercenary group from now on.
Because I'm concerned and at the same time curious, really, about how this group would then continue to operate after now. Because just as you have inferred, the situation in Niger, there was even a time it was said that some of the Wagner mercenaries were already in Niger. So if these are people who are there, there is no known leader and they are armed. I mean, just what could happen to security anywhere they find themselves?
Well, obviously, that is very concerning in some ways, especially for West Africa, where Wagner mercenaries are operating in Mali, Burkina Faso, Central African Republic, Libya, and Niger now. Of course, it's concerning, but I do not think that anything dramatic would happen just because the leader has the leader and the deputy have been taken out. As I said, I think the Russian state still has a massive control over the mercenary group in some ways, and I see that the defense ministry would take much more assertive actions in ensuring that the Wagner group continues to operate within Russia's foreign policy's directives. As I said, the most radical thing that people are suggesting is that Wagner group mercenaries will retaliate and march on Moscow and perhaps try to take out those who have killed Prigozhin. But I do not see how that could actually happen. I do not think that they have the capacity or the sort of the logistics to carry that out. So I think that they will, in some ways, also understand that they do not have the upper hand in this kind of game of cat and mouse.
A lecturer of politics and international relations at Liverpool Hope University, Bola Didion. Thank you for talking to us on The World Now.
Thank you for having me.